Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica podcast partner AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it. I have the pleasure to welcome you, Gerald, to Urbanistica podcast. Hey, and welcome.
Mustafa, thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be here.
I'm happy to see you and also to record an episode with you. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, we had a week of where everybody in the family was sick, so we're finally getting back on track. Not COVID though.
Yeah. Okay. How's it going with the work? Too much to do now?
It's a good time of the year. Yes, we're quite busy. We can't complain, but it's the good kind of busy. So 2 thumbs up for that.
Good kind of busy.
Yeah, well, you have before Christmas, for example, that's the kind of crazy kind of busy. So I rather have the good kind of busy where things are moving forward and things are getting done and new things are developing. So that's what I call the good kind of busy.
Yeah, and where are you now? In which city?
I'm based in Graz in Austria right now. Or actually, for the past years.
So let's talk about you. You're our storyteller. How would you like to introduce yourself, and please tell us about your passion?
Well, I'm co-founder of Urban Future, which is Europe's biggest event for making cities sustainable, and that's a big part of my life at the moment. And that's where my passion is right now, at least my professional passion.
So tell us more about your background, like where you grew up, what did you study, and how was the journey until you're here and doing Urban Future?
Yeah, well, so I'm 47 now, and I grew up in Vienna first, and then my parents moved to this other city, Graz in Austria, which is, I always like to say it's the second largest city of Austria, but
is it true?
It is, yeah. But it's just 280,000 people, so that doesn't say much. But at that time, I totally hated it because everybody who came from the capital city of Vienna was like a stamp on your head. From Vienna, and everybody outside Vienna kind of disliked you. And as a teenager, that was kind of tough. So I really hated Graz. And when I finished school, I went to university for a year, which I didn't particularly like here in Graz. And then I decided, I'm gonna leave that horrible
You don't like
place.
anything, Gerald. You don't like anything.
No, that's not. So I decided, no, I'm gonna leave Graz and travel the world basically, and have other experiences. And I went to university in the United States, which I really liked. Here you go. No, I really liked it. I really enjoyed the university. It's a very different system, a very different approach, also from professors and stuff. And it was a great experience for me and a great learning environment, very inspiring.
What did you study?
I studied actually international finance, and because that was the 90s, so that was the time of Wall Street when the movies came out. Yeah. So everybody wanted to become, well, not everybody, but a lot of youngsters wanted to become stockbrokers and make the hell of a money. So I thought, studying international finance, going to New York City, study there, I'm going to be super rich. And then as life takes these kind of unexpected turns, in my first semester break, I did an internship at an investment bank. And after 4 weeks, I knew I would probably do any kind of job, but becoming an investment banker. They were mad. Maybe it was a bad example, but I said, I'm never going to do that job. So I added to my studies marketing to it. So I was a double major at that time. And when I finished my studies, then I started to work for a German company, and I worked for it briefly in Austria, and then in India, in China, and in several European markets. Then I became a business consultant. It was actually an advice from my boss. He retired, and he said, Gerald, if there's like one last advice I can give you is quit the job here and become a consultant. It's not only really well paid, but it's a great school for you and for a lot of people. So I did that. I went to one of the top 4 consulting companies in the world. I worked for them in Germany on a super interesting project for then. It was the German Postal Service that was transferred from being a state-run business or a state-run entity into Deutsche Post DHL, the biggest logistics provider in the world. And that was just the time when they really changed everything in this company. It was super interesting, and that also helped me actually learn one really important thing, is that if you're in the room with very high profile people like board members, they're just people. You don't have to bow in front of them or have to be like super humble. They're just regular people, just with a different job, and that really helped me in my future career steps then, and also in my work right now.
Very, very interesting journey. Actually, you tried so many different things, in different countries.
Well, it was always the kind that this. In the end, it was the same job, because when I went to, after being a consultant, I worked for a German company in the US, building up the US operations. That's what I did for this German company in India and China, building up their sales operations there. Then it was the marketing operations for the German company in the US. Then we wanted to get kids, and we came back to Europe, and I worked for Europe's biggest law firm with about 5,000 lawyers, working on their marketing, setting up marketing and business development in Eastern Europe. So it was always this starting from scratch, starting something from like a white piece of paper, and that keeps that keeps coming up in my CV. Whatever I do, it's usually that kind of thing.
What's the background that you started Urban Future? I mean, you were happy doing marketing, I guess.
Yeah, well, I already mentioned it, but you probably know, as life takes sometimes really unexpected turns, that was definitely one of those turns, because at that time I worked in Vienna. I worked for this law firm. I had the typical, corporate job. I was moving around a lot, going places, meetings, making a lot of money. And then I fell in love. And thing was that my love lived in Graz, the place I never wanted to get back to. And there was a decision to be made, and I made it, and I moved to Graz. I had no job, and that was the start of it, of things really changing, because while I was looking for a job, I supported my now wife's and sister-in-law's business. They were working for the city of Graz in the consulting project, and I helped them in this consulting project. And the weirdest thing happened out of this consulting project. We created an idea of a workshop for the city. And out of this workshop, that kind of blew up into our face, because everything started with somebody like the project manager from the city saying, Gerald, I cannot hear the word smart city anymore. So So that was started a really interesting conversation. And the bottom line was that he said, well, if you want to talk about sustainability in cities, the question is not what should we be doing, because that's really obvious what cities should be doing. The question is, and that's their biggest challenge, is how on earth should they do it? How to get started, how to take people on the journey, how to take the stakeholders on the journey in an ecosystem that's so diverse with so many different interests. So we took that with us, and my sister-in-law Claudia and the team, we came up with this idea of why don't we invite similar cities who have done similar things than the city of Graz tries to do now. We invite the project managers and we let them talk only about the things that went wrong. That it's quite simple idea, but they liked it. They said, oh, that would be really cool because, nobody really talks about things that went wrong. You can read best practice cases and everything seems, sunny all the time. But we all know if you're transforming and if you're innovating, things are never sunny all the time. So they kind of liked it, this idea. And we started working on setting this workshop up. But then the weirdest thing happened. They obviously talked to peers about it, other cities. And we kept getting calls from other cities until we finally said, okay, so let's make this public. Well, maybe we get like 50 people. We started out with 20 people for the workshop, then maybe 50. When we hit 100,
which year was it? When was it?
That must have been like 2013, 2014. When we hit 150 people who registered for the workshop, we were like, we probably need to do some work here. Need a bigger place, need some kind of program. And to make a long story short, it really blew up into our face, and it scaled over the time of about 6 months until we ended with an event for about 1,000 people from 30 countries who all traveled to Graz to talk about how do you make things happen in sustainable cities. And we were so unprepared as you could potentially be unprepared for an event of that size. It felt like cramming 100 people in an elevator, but people were sitting on the floor. We ran out of badges. We had no programs left. But the spirit that we experienced there was so different. And that started Urban Future.
Wow, it's an interesting story because, wait, with your background, did you understand what they talk about, about cities and so on? Or it was super niched and you'd be like, okay, what are the words they are using?
Well, I think if there's one thing as a consultant that I learned is structure topics, structure an issue, and get to the bottom of it. So what I had, it really were a couple of puzzle pieces that fell into place here, because I had a lot of conversations with experts from the field, urban planners, mobility planners, energy experts, and so on. But if you have a conversation with 20 mobility experts, you kind of get a hangout, okay, what are the issues, and getting the bigger picture. I had no idea about the details and how to actually do it, but at least I could ask the right questions. And that was worth a lot, because it turned out that it was our team that was able to not go so deep into all these special issues. So we were not like the mobility nerd kind of questions, but we took the bigger picture that's not only interesting to the mobility people, but also to the urban planners and the politicians, etc. So suddenly there was a mobility session with a lot of different people from a lot of different areas within the city, and not the typical silos that you usually see in cities.
Yeah.
It kind of happened on accident, but it is now really a critical ingredient to our Urban Future events, making sure that the topics that we select are topics that are not only interesting for one small group within a community.
Is it because you want to get more audience, or? to sell more tickets, or?
Well, no. Well, no and yes. Two things. First of all, I think when you talk about a sustainable city and you want to talk about, let's stick with the example of urban mobility, for example. It cannot be the urban mobility department in charge of it. Or, well, they might be in charge, but they can't handle it alone. There are so many touch points. You have to talk to urban planning. You have to talk to energy. You have to talk to the other infrastructure systems. You probably have to talk to people from the communities, etc. So I think a big part is to have these people understand how to think outside the box and outside the systems that they have been working for decades now. That's one. And the other thing is, yes, we want to get more people into the topic simply because we think to make a city sustainable needs more people and more hands on deck. And, you know, I have been at a couple of urban events and they were so boring. You know, I consider myself as a somewhat intelligent person, but when you have these topic nerds talk to each other, they have their own language, and I couldn't understand half of it. So unless you have been part of that mobility community for 10 years, you couldn't even follow the discussion. So how could I then, if I was a mobility expert, how could I then get a politician excited about it, you know, if he doesn't even understand what the hell I'm talking about? And the same thing goes, how can I excite my urban planners? How can I excite my community and my citizens if when I start talking, nobody understands me? So I think a big attraction to Urban Future is actually do translation work. It's translating very particular language and topics and make it accessible to a broader audience. It's not necessarily like a private audience, it's still a professional audience, but much bigger and much more approachable to everybody. And I think
like the disciplines, when you say audience, like which are the disciplines? Are we talking urban planners, architects? What groups are you targeting, or do you want to invite to the table?
Everybody. And that's something that we really learned at the first Urban Future when we had it, and we had no clue what just happened when the first event was over. We looked very closely at who came to this event, and we were totally astonished by the fact that we saw three things. First, we saw people who come from almost any discipline. It was, I think, 21 or 22 different disciplines from water, energy, housing, waste, education, health, and so on. We saw people would come from almost any kind of organization. So it was not just municipalities and administration, but it was businesses of any size and kind. It was research, it was NGOs, it was even civil groups that got involved. And the third thing we saw is people who come from any, let's call it hierarchy level. So we had like mayors and CEOs of companies, but we had people like doing sustainability projects in neighborhoods and pretty much anybody in between. So here comes my marketing major background.
Yeah.
That's like everybody, and everybody is never a good thing to talk to. So when we did some in-depth interviews then with the former entities, we learned, luckily, that there's one thing linking all of these people, and that's that every single of them had such a passion in driving sustainability. So that's what we learned there. It's not about a particular group or profession that you want to get involved. It's people with a shared mindset. And suddenly, if you break it down on like the scale of a city, it's not the urban planners who are in charge of transforming your city and the way you operate, but it's actually people from all the sectors, all the different organizations, from all the levels, who collectively then bring in their passion in driving change. And suddenly you have many people working on the same thing. And that's actually what's happening in cities around the world. It's not just the mayor or the politicians doing this. It's thousands of people working on all different areas of a city, shaping this transformation. And Urban Future is the place where we get them together, where we let them talk about how do you do things, what works, what doesn't.
Tell me. So the first year was crazy. You didn't expect the number of audience and so on. So when you finished the first event, what happened next? This was 2013, and now we are 2022. So what was the next? How did you say, okay, but this is something we have to keep?
Yeah. So the first event that happened was in 2014, and then we said, okay, we are on something. We hit a nerve with a lot of people, because funny side story is when we did prepare for this first event, we asked a lot of people, oh, do you want to be speakers? And people keep telling us, oh, isn't that the same time as Barcelona? and I think when it was the third or the fourth time a person told us, we said, what the hell is Barcelona? Yeah. What is happening there? So we started to Google around, and we were like, oh, it's just the biggest smart city event in the world. Okay. So but here we were, same time as the biggest event in the world on smart cities, still getting 1,000 people from 32 countries, just because it's so different.
It's good.
So that was the side story. What happened then? We then figured out, okay, we have to do it again. And then we already knew much more about the audience. So we specifically tailored an event and said, okay, this is an event for the people who drive the change and drive the transformation in cities. And then, it just happened. We had 2016, we had an event in Graz again. We kind of maxed out the city in terms of hotel capacity and travel capacity. Then we started to develop a strategy, and how can we actually make this sustainable? Because you need a big team to make this happen. And we then changed into a strategy of having an annual event in different cities every year across Europe. So we went to Vienna, big Austrian capital, in 2018, and then 19 we went to Oslo. 20 we would have been in Lisbon, and 21 we have been in Rotterdam. Unfortunately, Corona the way, but we do have a good pipeline now. We will be in Sweden, Helsingborg this year. In 23 in Stuttgart, Germany, 24 now it's going to be in Rotterdam, and so on.
Yeah. How big is the team now? Like how was the growth of the team? Organically, or you be like, okay, we need people.
Well, when we started, we were 2 people, and the staff of the company who kind of helped in wherever we needed. Now it is really a team of its own. We are now about 10 people working more or less full-time on it. That's during the year, and during an event, we're roughly 150 people working on it.
That's so crazy. Are you happy?
Yes, I am.
Are you proud?
Yeah, we are proud. And I think what really makes me proud is that we didn't really know at that time, because when COVID hit, we had to cancel the 2020 event 3 weeks before it happened. And we had absolutely no plan B, so it was actually canceled. But what happened then was that we got so many emails and so many calls from partners, from attendees, and even from cities who said, how can we help you? How can we help you survive this? Because we really want to have it happen. And we had a city in Germany, and I love telling that story because it really touched us. It was a city in Germany who reached out to us and saying, guys, it must be a horrible time for you with the event being canceled. We really love it. We have been at the past 2 events. We want to be at it in the future. we had to cancel all our trips from our international team, and we have some budget to spare. Can we, transfer you like 5,000 euros? We were like,
Wow.
are you kidding me? This is a city,
Yeah,
this is a
exactly.
municipality giving us money just so that we
Just because
survive.
yeah.
So that was cool. And that really gave a huge push to the team, and see the kind of work that we're really doing. We really have the feeling that we touch the lives of a lot of people and help them be better change makers.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It's so a good story. Start crying when you got the email?
Please. Now, it was just this moment. You work for a whole year in making this happen, and it's a lot, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hassle, a lot of nights that you work. People are, going places, meeting people. And then everybody is like, okay, finally it happens. And then, just right when you're there,
I hate it.
Pull the plug, and it's zero. Nothing happens.
Nothing. Yeah.
And everybody has been so unhappy and so sad about it. So it was, everybody was down. So this was. I kind of waved the email around, saying, "Listen, guys, what has just happened?"
I can imagine. But tell me, Gerald, did you fall in love with the city, because you hated it in the beginning, like when you were a kid?
Well, it really helped that I fell in love. That did a big part of the job. But no, I really did. I really like Graz. Having lived in cities like Mumbai and Shanghai and New York City, in these metropolis, it's cool to live. But the kind of quality of living that you have in a smaller city like Graz, it's green, it's super safe. You don't have to worry about your kids when they travel anywhere at any time of the day. They can walk to school, they can bike to school. It's green. If you want to go out in the nature, it's half an hour and you're in the woods or in the mountains. In New York City, you might be possibly making it to the subway station in half an hour, and then until you actually hit nature, you need some time. So yes, I really came to appreciate that, because cycling to your work, 10 minutes is something that really helps you enjoy life and focus on what really matters, rather than commuting for hours every day.
Yeah, that's true. And about urban future, because like I want to hear behind the scenes, because I also organize some event, TEDx, TED Talk, and so on. And people see the event, enjoy it, but I love to share what is behind the scenes. So can you walk us through like the process? How did you decide the topic, speakers, venue, and like what is behind the scenes?
Well, there are a couple of things happening behind the scenes. So when we talk about getting the event together, that's actually not something we do alone. So we usually start with like 3 to 4 big themes that we want to cover, and that's something that we discuss and agree upon together with our hosting city. So we say, for example, okay, we want to talk about mobility, we want to talk about sustainable buildings, whatever. And then we have these 3 or 4 big themes, and then we throw this out in the community, and we're basically asking everybody we know, what could we be talking about in these sections? Because if you talk sustainable mobility, hell, that's a huge field. But what's hot right now? What are people talking about? What are people not talking about? What should they be talking about? What are the conversations that are missing, etc.? And it's hundreds and hundreds of calls and conversations our program team has. We have hundreds of suggestions from our network of topics, speakers, angles that we could take on. And at this point, we have close to 100 organizations that teamed up with Urban Future, and we're asking those active in these areas, we're asking them, okay, so what should we be talking about? What's hot right now? And we come up with this huge canvas, like a mind map, with I don't know, 50 ideas in the end that we could be doing in mobility. And then we have this for each of these big themes. And then we say, okay, so how can we connect the dots now? How can we find topics that touches more than just one area? And that's the fun part. Then that's when you start connecting the dots. We come up with about 6, 8, maybe 8 themes or topics that we then develop into sessions and storylines. And then once we have that, we again go back to the community and asking, so who are the cool people doing this? That's at least to me, the most motivating part of my job, because whatever you do most of the things that you do is talking to interesting people. And you realize how much is going on around the world in this field, how many people work on projects, programs, how many people are shaping and changing and doing things. And there are so many people that are doing things that you would not believe they're doing, or that's possible doing for a single person. So that's one part that we really like. So putting the program together and making sure. But I think a big part that we really enjoy also is making this event different in several ways. So we want to give people that are attending or people that are there, giving them a unique experience. So one thing, for example, is that we work very closely with our speakers. And when you got like 180 speakers, you just don't have 180 TED speakers. You have people who are still coming up with PowerPoint presentations with font size 10, I don't know, and packed full of text. Yeah. And you see these presentations and you start yawning and say, oh, boring. And so what we started to do a couple of years ago is really working with speaking coaches. So we're offering our speakers speaking coaches, helping them develop a story, a different way than they used to do it. And people really like it. So they like the input from an external person saying, hey, okay, this is your story. This is what you want to present. So how about you do it this way? How about doing that way? They're showing good examples on how you can focus on it. So that's something we do that people really like. Another thing is we want to make it personal. So we're not, when you sign up for the conference, you usually have somebody within our team who kind of knows you, at least from the speaker perspective. And there is a personal relationship with somebody from the program team with the speakers. So what we do, we just put yourself then in the situation, you're coming to this event, you got like 2,500 people there. It's a madhouse. And there is this reception area where you get your badge and everything. And you see, oh, speakers, great. You go to the speaker's desk, you run up there. You have never seen those before. It's the first time you're in the city. And the person at the check-in desk says, oh, Mustafa, great to meet you. It's so great that you're here. And
I will be like, wow.
Yeah, this is like the moment where people are like, what the hell? I've never seen them before. How the hell do they know me? They feel so important. They feel so seen. But that's something we do. We have the people working on the reception desk, for example. They really study Facebooks. We have Facebooks for all our speakers, so they see, okay, it's important to welcome these people by their name, say hello, asking them, how the trip was. Yeah. So and that's a.
Is it part of your touch, like because you work with marketing and experience? Is it part of you putting it as create a good experience for the speakers?
Yes, but it came more natural, I think, because we we kind of feel to have a connection with the people that are coming. We really like them. Most of the people that we invite, we really like them. They're great people. So having a good conversation with them is interesting. I like it. I have a good conversation with people that I invite. So it's just natural to personally welcome them and say hi and say how you're doing. And if they told me in the conversation before that the kids were sick, I'm asking how the kids, something like that. But seeing them as a person, and it just came naturally. Now we're cultivating this, yes, and it becomes some kind of a unique thing for our speakers and for us and for our volunteers that are working for making the event happen.
That's amazing. So this is the experience for the speakers. How about the audience? What kind of experience you create for them?
It's mostly
why it's so unique, like Urban Future?
I think what's unique to the audience, or actually to all the attendees, also to the speakers, is that you instantly feel there's a different atmosphere at this event compared to other urban events or tech events or smart city events. And I always compare it to a collector's fair. I don't know if you've ever been at one of those where, I don't know, people trade little toy cars or something like that. They have these really long tables and they put their little treasures in front of them and sitting opposite of the table. And all they do is talk about the little cars. And they couldn't care less who the person on the other end really is, what they do. So it could be a president, could be a cleaning person, could be, whatever, doesn't matter, anybody. And it's similar at Urban Future. So you get people together and all they care about is their passion of making change happen. And because of that, it's much less the conversations and the meetings and bumping into people. It's much less about ego or rank or position of a particular person. And because people so much focus on their experiences and about the passion that they have, the joint passion that they have, these invisible barriers between the groups disappear. So you have different experts from different fields talking to each other. You have politicians talking to people that they usually don't talk to. And in the end, this results into very, very meaningful and conversations that are not judgmental. So it's always focusing on the experience and a lot about the person that's behind a job or a position. And that's an environment that people really value. So they open up and they really share experiences, whether they're good experiences or whether they're not so good experiences. Maybe they're not very proud of some of these experiences, but they are super interesting and super important for others who are in the same position that this person had been previously. And I think this open culture is something we really want to treasure and nurture, and making sure that this is there, because sharing mistakes is what we think can really help cities to speed up the transition. Because if you keep doing the same mistakes that others have been doing over and over again, why do you have to make the same mistakes? It's already out there.
Yeah, and let's be honest, this is what we were doing in our cities, like doing the same mistake and thinking, okay, that's fine, keep going. And I have also a question, because like with the podcast, I also like to bring up the worst practices. And this is what also you do with the Urban Future. Are people brave enough to share?
Well, it depends. The question is, it depends. We have one session. This is like our premiere session in the conference. It's called the City's Fuck Up Night. And this is where, yeah, sorry the language, but I think people get the point what it's about. This is basically where politicians get on stage, talk about big failures that they personally had, or the teams and the projects that they were involved with had. And when you talk about mistakes, first of all, you need to have the right person talking about it. And then you have the right audience. Just picture yourself in a very critical group. Be a teenager in school, in high school, and you go out in front of your class and you say, do you know what? I really have a problem with self-confidence. And, everybody's going to start cracking up and laughing at you. So you're going to be bashed on it. If you have that kind of an environment, it's not going to work. And to be honest, we were quite skeptical when we did it the first time. That was at the conference in Vienna. And we didn't even dare to ask the city of Vienna if they wanted to participate, because, in Austria, politicians simply make no mistakes. This is unheard of. Mistakes never happen, just the others make mistakes, but they don't. So we didn't even dare to ask them. And it was just 2 weeks before the conference happened. We had a brief meeting with the deputy mayor of Vienna, and she said, what the hell is the city's fuck up night? And so I started to give her like a 1 minute pep talk, what it is. And she's like, oh, that sounds cool. Can I be speaker? And we were like, really? She said, oh yeah, we have lots of fuck ups, and I could talk about them. So I was like, okay. And, she rocked that place. She talked about a project of a pedestrianization project. They pedestrianized the biggest shopping street in Vienna and the biggest in Europe at that time. And it was a total disaster what they did. And it was like really a margin of luck that they were able to actually make it happen.
They really fucked it up.
Yeah, they made a lot of mistakes along the way because it was like the first time they really did it. So she openly talked about the mistakes that they did, but she also, and that's the core of the presentation then, was that she talked about what they learned. And they implemented it. Now we know they implemented these learnings into their next pedestrianization project. And that went smooth as hell. That was so smooth and nothing happened. And it was like, nobody even realized that it happened. So she was happy. The audience was incredibly impressed. And she got some of the best press that she got in her years as a politician. And that's, those are the moments that we really, really live for with making it happen. And that's why we really treasure this session, and we very carefully select who to approach, who to ask, and who to get on stage. We help them now individually, now with speaking coaches, to get the story right. But yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool, and
that's amazing. Yeah. Do you think that you created this culture of that people brave to talk about their mistakes and tell the others that we did this and this is what we learned? Like, do you feel this, that okay, now it's a kind of culture, we have it?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is what Urban Future stands for, what people now are expecting, and that's also why they're coming. And it's not only in the city's fuck up night, it's basically in every single session when we talk about whatever topic. We ask speakers, please talk about the things that did not work. And like in Oslo 3 years ago, 2019, we had been in Oslo with the event, and it was a big part of the event was the big car-free city center that the city implemented. It's a huge area, and it was visible everywhere in the program, and people experienced it when they were there. And we had a session with the deputy mayor, and she gave insights of how they made it, and was very open. But in the end, she said, but if there is like one advice I can give you, if you want to do a car-free area in your city, you can do whatever you want, but never call it car-free. It was like, That's weird.
Wait a minute.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Why is that? And I think the audience was the same. They were like, hey, why is he saying that? And she said, well, it's quite obvious actually. If you want to get car traffic out of an area, and you call it, this is the car-free city center, the question is automatically, or the topic is automatically framed, it's either for cars or against, which is, wherever you go, a super passionate conversation, controversy. Media is going to jump on it because they see, fights and controversy going on. But she said, in the end, that's not the issue. The issue is quality of living. It might be access of public space. It might be safety. It might be pollution. Whatever it is, make it that, and not a controversy that helps nobody. So that makes sense.
That's super interesting. And what about you? Like, tell me about your experience. Like, what is the best story or memory you have from these Urban Futures event? Like,
yeah, well, I'm usually not a person that's getting, in on stage. We are really busy behind, but starting in Oslo, when the conference really got that big, our comms director, she said, Gerald, you need to get out there. You need to get on stage. And it was like, oh no, I hate it. This is just not my thing. But so I had to do something at the end of the conference, after the city's fuck up night. And it was there behind the stage. It was a huge theater, 1,000 seats. It was fully packed. And it was behind the stage, pacing up and down. I said, come on, get your nerves under control. And while I was pacing there, I saw the last speaker of the fuck up night also doing the same. She was pacing up and down and was like really nervous. And I started to chat to her. She is Carolina Toa. She was the former mayor of Santiago de Chile. I was like, you've been mayor. Why the hell are you nervous? You must have been talking to people all your life. And she said, yeah, that's right. But you know what? I never really talked about this mistake that I made. And I'm really nervous talking to a lot of people about this mistake. So a couple of minutes later, she gets on stage and she tells this story of a super passionate woman mayor who transformed the city center of Santiago de Chile. They changed public transport. They made public transport happen. They closed roads for people. They brought in walking and cycling. It's great, but she didn't deal with opponents of it. And after 4 years of transformation, a transformation that nobody wants to, pull back, she got voted out of office, and she didn't see it coming. She didn't expect it. She didn't see it coming, and she told that story very passionately on stage, up to a moment where she had to, her voice cracked up, and she had to pause for a moment because she got tears in her eyes. And at that moment, I could see from behind that quite a lot of people in the audience actually got their handkerchiefs out and were like, oh, this is so sad, and this is like, I don't know, feeling striptease. I don't know how you want to call it. She really got out there on stage, dropping her pants and saying, like, this is me and I fucked it up, and please don't do the same. This was one of the strongest moments that I personally had experienced. Wow. In any of our events, and a lot of people still remember that.
That's so beautiful. And how was your speech?
I can't remember. It was certainly not spectacular, but yeah, I'm getting more and more used to it.
And what is like the worst thing happened, like when it got really fucked up?
if you have big events, there is an almost endless list of stories. But luckily, nothing really major ever happened. There are speakers getting sick, speakers not finding their place, planes not departing, people not coming. Yeah, this is like the typical juggling of 100 balls at the same time just to keep them afloat. Some fall down, but most of the things that worked out. And we're lucky that up until now, we never really had a major issue. I think what was probably the saddest thing to me personally was the experience with one of our speakers, Paweł Adamowicz from the city of Danzig in Poland. He was a Polish mayor at that time, a time where Poland got a very conservative national government, and you didn't really hear lots of positive change making kind of stories from this country at that time. But he was a rather liberal mayor, and he was very much into integrating immigrants. So they had a lot of immigrants coming to Poland at that time, and the national government basically wanted to get them out. And he said, come to Danzig and integrate them into the society in Danzig, but also wanted to use the skills that these people had to advance the city. So he was very progressive on this. He was very much into LGBT rights and many other issues. And he really transformed this former industrial city during his time as a mayor. So he came to the Urban Future in Vienna. He was a speaker there. He kind of rocked the place, a very positive person. And it was about half a year later that we learned that back in his hometown of Danzig, at the charity event, he got stabbed by a mentally challenged person, and he actually died. So these are moments that when you say, damn, why is this happening? And that's one side of being in a public office. And I think every public officer, I think these days, you don't even have to be a public officer. Sometimes it's enough to be a doctor treating patients to get hated by people. And I think what we have seen is really change in how people deal with each other if they have different opinions. That's like really, really weird these times. There's so much hate out there, which I totally don't understand why it's there.
Wow. That's a sad story.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me what is next, because now me, listeners, and also many other people that I know working with like urban planning field and city development, they're looking forward to attend the next one, finally, the Urban Future. So tell us, where is it going to happen? What are we going to see? And yeah.
So the 2022 Urban Future is going to happen in Helsingborg, Sweden, which is a very, well, compared to our previous cities, Vienna, Oslo, Lisbon, a really small city of about 120,000 inhabitants. And it's going to take place from June 1 to 3 in this year, 2022. And a lot of people are asking me, first of all, they say, okay, I need to look it up. Where is Helsingborg? A couple of people say, yeah, I'm so much looking forward to coming to Helsinki. We're like, no, Helsingborg, this is Sweden, not Finland. So when I'm talking to people, why Helsingborg? It's always the same story. We say, listen, you might not know this city. First of all, it's a city of about 120,000, and that's a size where you have lots of peers in Europe. There are many, many, many cities, much more cities than the big cities of that size anywhere in Europe. So a lot of similar sized cities with similar issues. That's one. So the relevance is quite high. But what they is probably one of the most innovative cities in Europe, if not in the world, when it comes to transforming itself. And that's something that very few people really know. And that's why we think it's a great stage to talk about that, because what they really have been doing in the past 7-8 years is transforming their organization towards being innovative. And this sounds like so textbook like, oh, we have to transform the organization to be innovative, but innovation is not something that you say, no, we need to be innovative and everybody is. It's a huge journey. And what they did really is transform an internal structure of silos. You had all the different teams in their silos and they were working into an organization where now every single employee can start an innovation project. And if you have that kind of, it's a totally different culture, mood, and way of working. And that means not only that you need to take your staff on that journey, but you have the right managers for it. Because suddenly it's not about making sure that things are getting done, but now you suddenly need, as a manager, to make sure that you inspire your people, that you energize them, that you help them in realizing these projects, etc. Very different skill set. And that's what they have been doing. They exchanged an insane amount of managers. They got new stuff in. They developed a program, specifically developed it with the university on training their staff for this challenge. And they really created a city that is now in a situation that they can innovate in any field with almost light speed when it comes to city administrations. And that's really cool. And that's why we wanted to come here and make this part of the story, and part of what other cities can learn from.
Yeah, that's amazing. Actually, I grew up in Helsingborg. So shout out to Helsingborg. 2 years ago, when I started the podcast, I did the first episode with Mikko Gronholm when they started the H22 and so on. And when he told me the story about the change and the journey, I'd be like, wow, this is so crazy. Because as you mentioned, it's not only about the systems, about the people, like the mindset, the leaders. And so amazing to follow the journey. So tell me, like 3 days, right? From the 1st to the 3rd. And what is the program, the topic?
So it's basically like a week that's going to be totally crazy in the city. So there's a lot going on Monday and Tuesday. There are about 7-8 other events. There are a lot of meetings. European community meetings are going to be there. Project meetings from funding programs, Horizon 2020. It's the iCapitalism meeting, Green Capitalism meeting. So a lot of people from the field will be there. And then Urban Future is Wednesday and Thursday, where you have, let's call it, conference program, where we talk about various issues and how to make change happen. That's the bottom line topic that we always have in there. But in the end, these sessions are always like the fodder, like the start of a conversation that's then continued in the breaks, in the evenings, at the conference facility, but all across the city, wherever people go, in the restaurants, when they are meeting privately, and so on. It's just this moment where you meet so many interesting people that you don't know where to look at first and who to talk to first, because whoever you talk to, they're like really interesting. And that's what's going to happen. And then on Friday is the day of the conference where we get out in the field and where we see and experience things. So these are things that people usually are not able to see. So we take them inside some operations, they have a very innovative recycling system and a recycling facility in Helsingborg, where they also put a lot of materials into the circular economy. People will be able to see that. People will be able to see new city districts that are currently being developed. They have as their tour guides, so to say, deputy mayors, urban planners, people who are behind these projects. And it's not only about show, it's really much more about having a conversation with these people, learning what their thoughts are, but it's also the other way around, that they learn, okay, what could they best potentially improve? Because you have these people from all around the world who see something and they say, oh, that's cool, but how about this? How about that?
Yeah. So what are the feelings that you want us to get after finishing this conference? Like during and after?
Well, during the conference, you're gonna be busy. And you're gonna have the feeling, you're automatically gonna have the feeling, where should I go? Where should I go? You know, what's the next thing that I should be doing? Because there are like 5 things at the same time happening that I would like to be at. That's okay, and that's the kind of feeling that we like. But most of all, we want people to be super inspired and motivated in their work. Get back home to where they are and where they work, and be better change makers. I think one thing that people constantly tell us is when they, in particular, when they come the first time to Urban Future, they say, do you know, I work in, I don't know, municipality somewhere in the middle of Italy, and could be anywhere. And I really, I'm working on sustainability and I really want to shake things up. But I often have the feeling I'm the only one. And change is so slow, and I'm the only one caring. And then I come to Urban Future and I see there are thousands like me who all have the same challenges. And maybe I learn that I'm not really slow after all, because we are doing some really cool work. And it's a huge motivation booster to a lot of people that are coming there, seeing that there are so many people who care about the same thing, working on the same issues, having the same challenges. It's not just, when you really want to change things, often you question yourself, am I doing it right? Am I the right person to do it? But that's where you then feel that vibe, and you say, okay, this is how I should do it. And maybe you get some inspiration how you can improve and how you can do it better.
Yeah, that's so cool. And also, can you give us an advice? Because I also hate the thing with, like, there are 5 parallel sessions at the same time and I want to attend all of these. How can we choose as an audience? Can you give us an advice?
Nope. You just follow your feelings. What in that moment is the right thing to do. Whether you want to attend a more inspirational session, or whether you want to attend something where you meet a lot of people, or whether you want to get into a workshop, or whether you want to work on some of your skills. We also have sessions focusing on developing skills that you need for making change happen. And most people kind of print out the overview plan, or when they arrive, they take it and then mark the sessions that they are mostly interested in. And then in every break, they said, okay, so what do I feel now? Do I take A, B, or C? And then they go. But maybe in the break, they meet somebody and they go together and have an interesting conversation about something totally different. And they say, oh, there is a session on this. Maybe we should do that. And off they are. So you get into that flow at the event, and you need to be open-minded and see where the flow takes you.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Now I'm really looking forward to attend this great event, and I want to ask you, like, Gerald, what is your mission, or Urban Future mission? Like, what do you want to tell the world?
We don't want to tell the world anything. We want to make the cities better and more sustainable, and we want to be part of this because we think, there are so many beautiful places in our world, and I have a lot of kids. I want them to have a world to live. So we need to work on making these transformations happen before it's too late. We're blessed with what we have, and we should treasure it. And that's why we are doing this, why we want to bring together the most active and most passionate change makers. It's them who are on the ground every day, touch the life of millions of citizens, and the decisions they make will touch the lives of even more for many, many years to come. And if a city now decides to introduce a system like, I don't know, like a district heating system based on gas, this damn thing is locked in for the next 50 years. And that's why we think, come on, let's get those people together who do this amazing things today already, who can show, yes, it is possible. You can do things outside the box. You can do things in a sustainable way because we already did it. And tell this to the world, and energize those who are willing to actually do the steps. And there are many people willing to do the steps, to do these steps, and some just need a little kick in the butt to actually do the first step. So, and that's what we want to do with inspiration.
Yeah, that's so interesting, so beautiful answer. And now we are in the final section of this episode. Back to you, the storyteller, and let's see what are your thoughts and philosophy. So I will ask you a question and get interesting answers from you, as usually you give me. So what makes you happy in your city?
Being there, it makes me happy to cycle the city, walk the city. It's green, it's peaceful, it's beautiful, it's healthy, and yeah, that makes me happy. But it also makes me happy to see how the younger generations are increasingly voicing their opinions here, and getting involved, and actually taking the lead in the transformations that we need. They just were the big reason why the city government changed after 15, 16 years. And that's the kind of spirit that I'm really proud of, that the younger people care about.
And also the city give them a space. Or?
Well, the kids, the smaller kids, they do have a lot of opportunities. And I think what's great are the educational opportunities in the city. We got 5 universities, so we got 70,000 students. We got, I don't know how many schools, etc. But I think it's mostly the younger generation that it's now saying, okay, we had it, now we want to have it differently. And they're voicing it, and they're getting involved, and they're taking the lead in doing things, and not just sitting back and saying, oh, it should be better. They're doing it. It's the young people that are getting into decision making, the young people that are getting into politics. And I think that's super interesting, because it's, I don't want to point fingers or put everybody in the same pot, but it's probably not the 60-year-old white man who's going to save our cities or who's going to transform our cities overall. So I think it's the combination of skills that we need from all our society that we need. So we need to get this diversity that we have in our community actually also into decision making.
So interesting. And what makes you sad in your city?
It used to be the lack of vision. Really, we are in a very comfortable position. The city is beautiful, it's safe, things work, and you also see what's working only if you go other places where you don't see them working. But in the end, it just kept going, developing without a clear plan. Where the hell do we want to be with the city in 10 years, 25 years down the road? Because if we really take seriously what, for example, we as Austria, as a country, pledged at the Paris Agreement or the various COP conferences, if we take seriously our responsibility in climate change, then we must transform our cities quite substantially. And there was just almost nothing in it. There was no vision. How do we want to see the city in 25 years? And how on earth are we going to do it? And that was something that kind of made me sad that this vision was not there. And it seems that slowly now it is coming.
Great to hear that it's coming. And the next question, what should urban planners stop doing in cities? Now it's not only about your city.
What they should stop doing, I'm not too familiar with the the day-to-day work of urban planners, but what I probably can say what they should be doing is that they should get out more. And I take the words from a dear friend, Jennifer Kiesma, former chief urban planner from Toronto. She said when she had been working in urban planning, she started something very new in North America, and that is she hired people for communications in their urban planning team. And she said, today, the task of an urban planner should be 50% planning expertise, and it should be at least 50% communication skills, because now a project very often is about how to get the stakeholders involved, how to even define a project is already requiring talking to people. And if you just focus on planning and you don't see the people and you don't have the skills needed to also orchestrate or moderate a heated discussion among various stakeholders, it's difficult. And I think that's where actually many of these professions, not only urban planning, but other professions also need to go much more into softer skills.
How do we do that? Because like I attended 3 different universities in different countries, and none of them teaching like storytelling, communication skills, and education. And it's gonna take years until they have this kind of course. I mean, how do we as urban planners that are working now start to learn and get these skills? What is your advice?
Do it. Trial and error. I think, first of all, you might have in your team people who have experience in it. So work with them, learn from them. But to be honest, a lot of teams learn this by trial and error. They do things, they think this is right, they fail, and then please learn from it and not hang the person who made the mistake. And that's also something, at least coming from a German-speaking countries, very widely used, in public administration, for example. Somebody making a mistake, that's bad for your career. But that's kind of stupid, because if you kind of avoid people trying out new things and kind of telling them, well, you can innovate, but if you make a mistake, you're out. That's not really a motivation to even try. So you have to create that environment that also for your team, that it's okay to test things and to figure out how things work or don't work. And that's a leadership issue, or a leadership and culture theme that we also see changing. So it's a lot about learning on the job, actually, because some might work on projects for the public, others might work on very different planning topics. But in the end, it will require you to work with a lot of stakeholders. And if you're not able to navigate these different stakeholders, or to make sure that they're all fighting for the same thing in the end, it's going to be tough.
This is so true. So your advice is just do it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. And what is your favorite public space?
I got so many. I like parks. when we were doing the conference in Oslo, I really liked the seafront. They have such a beautiful seafront in the city center, and you can just, you drop out of the building and you take off your shoes, and you can even go swimming there. It's so relaxing, so beautiful. But in the end, I like places where I meet people. So every good or well done public space where I meet people, where there are people, are great places, whether it's a square, whether it's an area where you have outdoor cafes and restaurants, whether it's a park, a promenade, doesn't matter.
So people is the magnet.
Yes.
Yeah. And do you have time for your hobbies, and what are your hobbies?
Well, I do have a couple of hobbies, but yes, the job takes a lot of time. Luckily / unfortunately, in particular, the past 2 years with COVID hitting us and having a very profound effect on our team and the way we operate. But in the time that I do have, I like to be creative. Sometimes I write a bit with images, but I really love to cook. So whenever I have the time and the possibility, also I cook. And if I tell my family I'm cooking, then they know, oh no, that means he's gone for a day in the kitchen. And that's, so it's not really just cooking for getting food, but it's actually for the fun of working it out and cooking. And it's usually a day.
Maybe you should do this community kitchen and urban future, in Helsingborg, and cook for the.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we got the time to invest a full day in cooking, but it could be a good thing. Actually, food is a big topic in sustainability, so a couple of touch points there. And there will actually be a superfood concept during H22 with one of Sweden's most acclaimed chefs. He's having a food concept for the city and for H22. So that's gonna be, if you like food, that's you're gonna like.
Yeah. So 3 more questions before the end of this episode, and the first one is: if you will be another creature, object, anything but not a person, what will you choose to be, and why?
Maybe a monkey. I've traveled to Central America many years ago, and there I was lucky enough to see in the jungle a family of monkeys, howler monkeys, and they were not only so peaceful, but they were so incredibly caring about each other, about their babies, and it felt like they all loved each other. And I love that kind of environment. I love my family, and I love the way, the kind of positive vibes it gives you, the possibility of making mistakes without, getting your head chopped off, or at least most of the times not. It's I like that, and the monkeys seem to have that.
Yeah, a monkey. Interesting. Give me and the listeners 3 takeaway messages. You can summarize what we talk about, or takeaway messages from your experience about cities.
I think there are a couple of things that we really learned from the work with so many change makers from cities around the world. First of all, I think if you want to create change, you need to make sure that there is the right environment for it. And if I say the right environment, it means that you got the right people, the right mood, the right feeling. It's not always the right moment for change, because if you're now, I don't know, if like a year and a half ago when the whole pandemic started, and you talk to politicians about, we need to transform our mobility system, they probably would tell you, please come back after the pandemic. It's just not the right moment. So you need to make sure that you also get the right moment to do. But if you want to drive change, and if you are not in the right organization to do so, look for alternatives. Don't waste your time waiting for something external to happen. That will be one advice that I have. The other advice, or another advice, is that you should not underestimate what you can make happen. We have seen unbelievable things happen that were initiated by a person who didn't see, what in the end this would make, but they had an idea, they had a passion, and say, okay, this is what somebody should be doing, and I do this now, and they just get going. And whether it's a trash picker in Bogota who started single-handedly the transformation of a whole city district from being a waste dump to being a city district, or whether it's a student who thought, hey, we should be collecting trash separated, and that developed into a program of trash collection in Latin America, where now close to 100,000 people work at collecting and selecting trash and having a way of living. Or whether it's a guy from Norway who cleans beaches of plastic, who eventually had an impact on how Scotland is making its laws on plastic bottles. You never know where it goes. So don't underestimate what you can achieve. And the third thing that goes with it is just do it. Get started. Stop talking about it. Get started making the first step. The first step is the toughest, but once you made it, the second one is not so tough. The third one becomes easier, and you build momentum. So if you want to drive change, do it. It's easy as that.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. I love your messages. The final question is going to be asked by you in this episode. Ask the listener a question.
If you had a choice and you wouldn't have to worry about money, what would you do with your life, in your life?
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for your valuable time to record this episode. I'm really looking forward to the event, and I'm happy and inspired by talking to you. Thank you so much, Gerald.
Well, Mustafa, thank you for having me at the show, and all the best.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. You learned something new and also got inspired by the guest. Don't forget to share the episode on your social media and recommend it to people you think they are really interested in this topic. Thank you so much again for giving your valuable time to Urbanistica podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif. Keep up the good work. Keep loving cities.